Pretty well. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. So, where are you located?
So
In New
I'm
York?
currently in Dallas, Texas.
Okay. How's Dallas doing nowadays with everything, with the vaccine coming out and all that?
It's actually doing really well. Things are starting to reopen, and most of the stores, as long as you're vaccinated or whatever, they're like, "Hey, you don't have to wear a mask anymore."
Oh, that's cool. How's so the gyms are still like open, everything like that?
hmm All the gyms are open. Most of them don't require masks anymore that I've been to, and the private gyms never did.
Got it. Got it. So you were able to get like your training in and everything throughout the pandemic and everything?
Yeah, I was
Awesome.
very lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people had some trouble. I ended up like just basically moving into my, house as far as the gym's concerned, just getting some stuff, in my garage and just kind of doing it that way. But it is what it is. People do whatever they can to still, try to keep their physique. So how did you get into fitness and training in general?
So I actually got into it because I saw a picture of Ashley Cadwalser.
Hmm.
Um, and at the time, I was really unhealthy. I was about 98 pounds and I had not been eating enough. And for my height of 5'6", that's way too little.
Yeah.
And I looked at that picture and I said, I want to look like her.
Hmm.
And so I finally started realizing that food was a tool and that I wanted to build a nice, strong body.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of how I got here.
So yeah, I mean, most people when they say they were unhealthy, it's usually like they were too big. In your case, you were too small. Is that
Yeah.
um, was there a particular like reason for it, or you just genetically inclined to just not like eating? Some people are like that. I knew a guy at work, and he was just, I have no interest in eating. I'm just not interested. And so, well, what was your situation?
Mm. It was a little bit of a mix. So
Hmm.
at the time, I was trying to eat what I was told was healthy, which was like, lots of salads, very little
Hmm.
meat. Um, and then also just I had this image in my head that I had to look like a Victoria's Secret model, super thin. And so I really restricted myself on calories. I think on average, I ate about 900 a day. Yeah.
That's so, that's so little compared to like me. Like I'm kind of trying to cut a little bit right now, and it's like I'm looking at 2000, and 2000 I can barely like barely function. So I can only imagine what a human being does on 900 calories. Like what kind of things did you notice? Like what would happen like if you're on that low of calories?
I was always tired. I was super weak. So the first time I ever tried to do like quad extensions, I think I was able to move to 15 and I only got 8 out of it. So super,
Hmm.
super weak. Always tired and just really generally sad. Like my overall
Yeah.
disposition was just sad.
Yeah, it's amazing how like calories can affect your mood, right? Like we kind of
hmm
everybody kind of knows that as they're going through like preps and stuff like that. But for an individual like just that's not involved in any kind of like competitiveness with regard to bodybuilding or fitness, they don't really understand. But it's like calories have like a very distinct effect on how you feel and your attitude and your mood, because like when your body's starving, it's like you don't have the energy to deal with anything or with anyone else. Like you're just trying to like survive basically day to day, whether it's conscious or you just your body's doing that, so
hmm
I guess that's something that like you kind of felt firsthand.
Oh yeah. And I'm feeling it right now too, because I am back in prep.
Oh,
But
are you in prep?
I'm
Okay.
yeah, I'm eating significantly more now though than I was.
Got it. Got it. So when you decided, okay, well now I'm gonna go ahead and start, doing eating more, getting more muscular. Like, how did you go about doing that? Like, what was the process for that?
So it started in the very beginning with me starting to research. Okay, well, if this is the body type I want, how do I get it? Oops, sorry,
Mhm.
there's an alarm going off. I was
Oh, no
making sure
worries.
I was on here. Can you see
Hopefully,
me
it's nothing
again?
like super important. Like,
No, it was just you. I mean, it was just my
oh, I
alarm,
got
like,
you.
hey, you better be, ready.
Yeah.
Um, so I started by looking kind of at the different things that the bikini competitors did. So I started looking at their diet. I started researching articles online about strength training. One of the things I had found was a study, I believe it took place in Russia,
Mhm.
and it was about how much protein per pound of body weight you need to eat in order to build good muscle. And so I started really employing that, which wasn't hard at the time. So I did that, and then I started lifting weights 5 days a week. And at the time, I was still doing a lot of cardio, which eventually I stopped doing near as much cardio. And I really started focusing on building my legs, and strength was a big overall goal. So
Mhm.
I went probably 6 or 8 months on what back then was my bulk diet of like 2,000 calories. And now I laugh. And I spent a long time working on that. I had friends who I met in the gym who also helped me find those goals. And then after about a year and a half of lifting, I contacted Brittany Bull, who is now my coach. And shortly after that, she put me on a diet and a training regimen and everything to get me here.
Mm, nice. So yeah, well, it's interesting. You were like, "Oh, it's from Russia. That's my homeland." There, it was. I was. It's so many things. Like there's so many studies done in like the former Soviet Union and Russia in general, as far as like nutrition and training, even like drug protocols and things like that. And people don't think about that. I don't know if you ever got a chance to. See, I forgot what it's called, like Eucharist or something. That's a Netflix special about a guy who was like, he was like the main director of the Olympic program for the Russians and everything. It's a really good one. You should check it out. But
I'll have to look it up.
yeah, it goes into like just their training, their like regiments, their protocols, everything like that. And basically, it's a political story too. So it's really good. But it's a true story. Yeah, so you started putting on weight, and it's like your goal was just strength. So are you planning to like be in the bikini division from the get-go, or were you trying to go like for a different kind of look altogether?
So Ashley Kay was my main inspiration. And so I knew I wanted to do bikini. And then eventually they released wellness. And I would love to do wellness, but I don't think genetically that my legs would ever be able to keep up with that.
Well, that's kind of like why I was asked that question, because you're talking about like kind of like building, doing a lot of building, a lot more calories, a lot more strength training. And I know in bikini, it's like some of that is done, but also a lot of times they try to back off, like so they don't get too big, like too big for the division. So do you run into that situation? Like, do you run into the fact that you might be getting like out of what they're looking for in bikini, or you're still within that mold, you think?
I think I'm still mostly there right now. I'm fully aware that I had to stop training upper body except for once a week, really light, really high intensity, because my back is now approaching more of a figure size than a
Mm.
bikini size. So thank goodness for long hair, because that's probably going to be my saving grace at my next show.
So do you ever plan on like switching over like to a figure? I know you said you love wellness, but has figure interested you in the past?
It has a bit. I don't like their suits as much because,
Mhm.
I just think all the it's really just me. I don't like the cut of the back as much. But at the same time,
Mhm.
I'm like, well, if my body fits there and in another year of off season, if that's where I end up, then that's where I end up.
Yeah.
Um, my coach said way back in the beginning, whenever I first started training with her, that she thinks I would make a really good figure girl. So if
Yeah.
that's where the cards have me, then that's where the cards have me. I'm just kind of trusting in whatever she says.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now you think that like your back is your from my understanding, you said your back is getting like to that point where you might have to stop like training as much. Is that
Mhm.
kind of the direction that you're going in? Okay. And so at this point, I guess you're gonna stay in bikini. Do you have any shows like planned for the upcoming future? I know we got, COVID's kind of still around sort of in the competitive circuit, but like I see some competitions, they're still wearing masks and stuff, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the competitions as much as it did in 2020. So you've got plans for this
Mhm.
upcoming year?
Yeah, I actually am 3 weeks out as of today from the Dallas Europa Games.
Oh, awesome. I know. Well, actually, now that I'm thinking back, you did say that you're in prep. So you're 3 weeks out, you said, huh?
Hmm.
So, and how long does your prep usually last from the moment you start to the end?
I'm really lucky. It only lasts 10 weeks for me. I lose weight pretty easy for the most part, and I don't carry a lot in off season.
Got it.
So it's a pretty easy prep for the most part.
Got it. So differences between like your on like off season and on season, like what would you say like the biggest difference is just the calories or the way you train or like what would you say about that?
Really both. So one of the things that I do during off season is I really cut down on my cardio. Like right now, I think I'm doing an hour of stairs almost or 50 minutes or whatever. But during off season, I go on walks, I swim.
Hmm.
That's pretty much it. I don't do any really high intensity stuff. My weight training goes from like 10 to 12 reps to 6 to 8 reps, a lot heavier. And my diet is the biggest change. So in off season, on average, a day, I'm consuming 2,300 to 2,500 calories. And I like food a lot now. So I definitely like the off season diet more than my on
Yeah.
season diet. And I think right now she has me at probably, if I was going to guess, I haven't done the math. I would say probably about 1,500 calories is what she has me at.
Okay. And how do you feel on about that much, give or take? Do you feel like foggy or do you feel like pretty good on in that kind of calorie range?
So today I'm not super tired. On the days where I'm in the clinic all day, then I'm pretty exhausted by the time I get home.
Hmm.
I usually hit my fasted cardio. I go to the clinic after I get ready. I treat patients, then I go lift. And so by the time I get home, I'm just exhausted. And I do notice that I'm a bit slower whenever it comes to certain things. Um, but for the most part, I'm doing okay. My temper is a little shorter, but that could be the red hair too.
Yeah, definitely could be the right here. So you did mention that you work in a clinic. I know we talked back and forth through DM, and you were talking about seeing patients. What do you do for a living, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind at all. So I'm a chiropractic intern right now. So I'm finishing up my clinicals. Um, and I graduate in December. So I will be in practice in January.
Yeah, I always find it interesting. My wife is currently in nursing school, and I find it, and she's not competitive, but I do find it interesting when people have jobs that involve like really face to face, like medical field, like nursing, like chiropractor, like physical therapist, like just those kind of jobs, and they have to be in prep. Like, do you find yourself getting irritated with patients?
Not too much with patients because I also have to keep in mind that they're coming in pain. They're coming in with things that bother them. And so one of my goals, even during prep, is to really go, okay, this is not my time. This is the patient's time. It's
Right.
all about them right now. So I need to take any anger or any sadness or any sleepiness that I'm feeling and put it to the side for later. With family and friends, though, I'm not too horrible during prep. My temper definitely does get shorter,
Mhm.
and I definitely stare at the food more.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Well, I'm sure your patients are glad that you're not taking out your food cravings on them. It's probably for the best.
Oh yeah. The only thing I'll take it out on them in is whenever we do myofascial work. So if they've got a lot of trigger points in their
Mhm.
erector spinae, the muscles that run alongside the spine, most of them really like it if I really work out those trigger points. So if I'm at
Yeah.
all frustrated, I'm just like, okay, frustration. Here's a good thing to work on.
There you go. So going on with your professional career in that medical field, how important do you think it is for competitors or athletes or just anyone involved in weightlifting? Is it to get like and I know this might not be exactly what you do, but having some kind of like massage or something to do where they work out those kinks or those that scar tissue or anything else, like what would you say?
I think it's super important. So personally, I feel miserable if I've not been adjusted regularly whenever I go try and lift. Um, in fact, I think that if I was not getting adjusted, I would not be able to lift like I
Hmm.
am right now. I think it's really important because we only get one body, and everything that we do on a day to day basis, whether it's lifting, sitting in a desk all day like this, it impacts. I know I'm guilty of it too. It
That
impacts
happens to
everything we
me.
do. And so if we don't go back and we don't take care of it properly, we're going to have a sort of usable time span on it, kind of like changing the oil on a car.
Yeah.
So I look at massages, chiropractic, pretty much any of that, including working out, as maintenance.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Yeah, I definitely feel the difference if I regularly go to get like a massage, especially like a deep tissue one,
Hmm.
and then I go for a while not having, like, it's been a while since the last time I went, and I can definitely tell the difference. What do you think about those like I forgot what they call them, like percussion guns? Like, do you like them? Do you think they have a use?
I love them. So I have one and I use it on myself on a very regular basis, especially on like my upper traps and stuff.
Hmm.
I think it's great because, quite frankly, I don't really have the time to go take off and go get a massage most of the time. So, unfortunately. And so
Yeah.
I'll take that and I'll use it about 15 minutes a day if I'm having issues with my shoulder or something. And it really seems to help.
Yeah. Well, it definitely allows people to be able to get some sort of therapeutic massaging, even if they might not have the money or the time to be able to do that on a regular basis. I mean, sure, it's an investment initially, but then you can just use it as long as you want, as many times, excuse me, as you want. So, I mean, it's definitely a good option. I wonder what the difference is between using that and going to get one by an actual licensed professional. I would think it would be significant. There's still some kind of significant difference there as well, don't you?
I would think so, because if I'm doing myofascial work on someone, I can run my hand down their back and go, okay, I feel a trigger point here. Do you feel this? And usually they'll say, yeah, I
Mhm.
feel that. And they're, probably in pain whenever you press on it. And the professional can go and they can feel exactly where all those trigger points are and they can work them out and they can feel whenever they start to loosen up. Whenever I use it on myself, I know what I'm looking for. I know how to feel them, but there's a difference between me sitting there and working out this spot on my trap with my fingers and eventually feeling it break up and loosen up to where, the trigger point's mostly gone, or whether I'm just sitting there hammering it, hoping it will eventually go away.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So that touch from the end of the fingers is critical to figure out like where the problems lie. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. So I was going to ask you something else along those lines as well. So we've all kind of heard stories as far as like chiropractic and massaging. Some people have great reviews, like they love it. Some people say, "Oh, I went to, someone and they really messed me up, or I feel worse afterward." S- Do you attribute that to something? Is this a lack of the professional just not doing like a good job, not knowing what they're doing, or is it one of those things where it does just work for some people and for others it doesn't?
I think it's a little bit of a mix.
Hmm.
So I think one thing that we have to look at is what's going on with the patient themselves. Is it something that chiropractic can actually help? Because if you come in and you say, hey, I want to get adjusted, but you have a ligamentous tear, a muscular tear, I don't want to treat that. I am not going to treat that. I'm going to send you on, because if I try to treat that at all, I'm just going to cause you more pain and I'm just going to do more damage.
All right.
If it's something like what we call segmental dysfunction. Okay, so you ever have that feeling like in your elbow or maybe in your hip where it just kind of feels like it's catching a little bit?
Yes, all the
And then
time,
eventually,
actually.
yeah. And then eventually it like pops and it feels better.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's like a restriction of movement. Okay. So if something like that is going on, or if you're just having neck pain, like, or for me, whenever I had whiplash from a car accident and herniated disc, chiropractic helped that a ton. A lot of it is also not only the condition that the patient has, but the practitioner themselves. Like, you've been to doctors where you're like, oh man, this is a great doctor. They really know what they're doing. And then you've
Right.
been to other doctors and you're like, how did you graduate medical school?
Right. With C's, because they pass too.
Exactly. Exactly. C's pass, D is for doctor, right?
Right. There you go. That's funny.
Not in chiropractic school, but
Yeah.
C's are better or else you don't pass.
Yeah.
But it's also about the doctor, their training, and their personality. Because
Mhm.
I think even if you have the best practitioner on the face of the earth and the optimal case for it, if the patient and the doctor don't mesh, even if it's overall a good experience and the patient experiences some relief, but the doctor and them just did not mesh and kind of rubbed each other the wrong way, I think it's going to be a bad experience for them
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it ends up being just like anything else, right? Like sometimes even, and like you said, I've been to doctors where, I personally haven't gotten along with them. Not necessarily like it's not an aggressive thing. It's just like we didn't click on the same wavelength and others have. And it's like I have to find someone else, and it's just the way it is. And they might work for someone else, but they don't necessarily work for me. Now, if it's something simple, and I think there's also a difference between something that is like 2 + 2 = 4 type of situation where you have an infection, they give you an antibiotic, that's like simple, everybody does, as opposed to treatments where there's therapeutic process involved, where there's a figuring out process, right? Like where there's trial and error, and I think that's kind of the situations where you really want to um, make sure that you and your medical professional really are on the same wavelength, because even treatments are up for debate, so it's kind of like that. I think that's a real big deal there. And it's like in your field, that's since all you do is essentially therapeutic, it's it's important that you click with your patients, I would assume so, right?
It really is. And it's all about being patient centered too.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'm going to do my exam. I'm going to do my orthopedic test, my neurological test. Um, we're going to do your blood pressure. We're going to do all of that, make sure everything's good. That's going to give me a list of things that it could be that's going on with you. It could be, you could have Behçet syndrome. You could have some sort of radiculopathy. We never diagnose anything like a disc bulge or anything like that without imaging. And at the end of the day, my orthopedic tests are going to point me in the right direction. And they're going to rule out certain things and rule in others. And even if you and another person have the exact same diagnosis, the treatment's going to be different because you might absolutely hate electrical stim, whereas the other person might love it. And it could be great for the condition that you both have. But if you say, oh no, I don't like stim and I do it anyways, we're not going to get along well.
Right.
And then also the patient's tolerance too is such a big thing. Because like I like my patients to do exercises because I think they're great. I think that I apologize. That's a bird. She'll stop.
I was like, I thought that was a cat. I was like, your birds are screaming.
No,
So
that's my
funny.
bird. She's upset that she's not in here. There's actually two of them right now, and they're upset.
Oh,
Uh, but as long as we stay moving, it's better for us. I've heard it called the motion is the lotion that keeps the body moving.
yeah.
So I like them to do exercises, whether it's to fix postural changes, because we all have a tendency to sit like this,
I do that all the
or whether
time.
it's oh yeah, wall angels, my friend. They're great. I do the 3 sets of 10 every day.
Oh
And
yeah.
they
Yeah.
really help out.
I might have to start incorporating that in there. Well, let me ask you this: since you brought in movement and we were talking about training, and you're in the competitive circuit, what do you think about some exercise that people deem as problematic? Like I've heard over the years, I've heard a lot of people say behind the back pull downs are problematic. Some people say even some squats or front squats are problematic. Is there any, like from your experience, do you think there's an exercise that is, like you shouldn't be doing at all? Is there such a thing?
I don't think that there really is so far that I've found. I think if you're not doing it with proper form, you shouldn't be doing it
Hmm.
because just because someone can squat 450 pounds does not mean they should.
The,
You know what I mean?
right. That's so funny. I don't know if you've ever seen some of these videos that they have. They have them all over the place, YouTube, Instagram, everything. But you'll see a guy and he'll load up like an insane amount of like weights, and then he will just go down just a little bit and then just pop back up. It's not even a squat, and it's like,
Oh
what's
yeah.
the purpose of that? Just to let people, like, show people that you can put a bunch of plates on the bar. What a waste. And so dangerous too, right? So crazy how, like, just for show, like people will like jeopardize things like that. So yep. So you're prepping for this show. Do you have plans on competing several times this year, or just this
So
once?
As of right now, my first focus is Europa. I'd love to nationally qualify and see where things go from there.
Mhm.
If I do, then if coach thinks that I'm ready to go to nationals, then we'll go to nationals. If not, and she wants me to work some more on it,
Mhm.
and whatever the judges' feedback may be, then we'll work on that.
Yeah.
I competed twice in the same year and I enjoy it. I feel like I stay a bit happier with the
Yeah.
routine of going through and waking up and doing my cardio and then eating certain things. I feel like I'm happier that way
Yeah.
with the routine. But at the end of the day, it's all dependent on how I do at this show and then what she thinks we should do next.
Right. So it's, yeah, I imagine in bikini that it's a little bit easier. And, that I guess that's person dependent too. I don't want to just kind of put it's broad stroke statement, but it'd be easier to compete several times in a year just because most bikini girls don't do a lot of weight changes, as far as what I can tell. Do you agree?
I think so. I mean, the last time, so 2019, whenever I competed twice, I think the biggest change, sorry about that,
No, you're
for
fine.
me was actually getting more serious about my diet. And
Mhm.
overall, I think that this sounds bad, but I do think bikini girls have it easier. I don't think that we have to get near as striated, near as lean
Right.
as the figure and physique girls. And that's one of the reasons I like the class because I don't think I could. I mean, I probably could. I don't think I would be as happy if I
Hmm.
had to diet long enough to get that lean.
Right.
But overall, I think that it probably is easier.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes like saying the word easier might like come off strange to people. It almost makes it seem like, oh well, you're not putting in that much work, but you are. But you're also attaining a totally different kind of look, And it's like,
Right.
so you're getting a look for that division. If you dieted any more, then you probably place poorly,
Exactly.
So it's for whatever your division says you should outlines is what you should look like. That's essentially why you're competing anyway. So
Mhm.
it makes complete sense. Yeah, I mean, so your goal, so you're thinking, so either what, this year or next year you're hoping to like get a pro card. That's the idea.
That would be the idea. That would be one of the
Mhm.
goals. I know it might not happen, but if it does, even better.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can. There's a lot of pro cards being given. There's a lot of shows where pro cards are being given. It's
Mhm.
like it's all about just the right. Right now, I feel like as opposed to many years ago, in the '90s and maybe even early 2000s, because there's so many competitors and they're giving out so many pro cards. It's almost like half the battle is to get in shape and be ready for stage, and the other half is to pick the right shows. And so it's
Right.
like it's almost a strategic concept as well as like a physical one, so yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's very attainable, so we got, we talked about the fitness aspect. So one thing that I was interested in also is that you're into like cosplay and stuff like that. How did you get into
Oh
that?
yeah. Well, it all started with my love of comic characters, specifically like Wonder Woman and Poison Ivy.
Oh, I don't
Um,
know. I don't know if
I
you see
love them. I do. I do see it. I
you
really
see a
like it.
shirt. Yeah.
I did. I like it.
Specifically wore it for this episode.
Perfect. That's perfect. She was my absolute hero. So growing
Mhm.
up, my mom had the DVDs of the old, the Wonder Woman TV show,
Yeah,
Linda
the
Carter.
old one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So I watched that religiously. Like I can't tell you how many times I watched that. And I wanted to be Wonder Woman. That was my goal. Every Halloween, I wanted to be Wonder Woman. I wanted to have the exact Wonder Woman replica costume because she was my favorite character and I wanted to be
Mhm.
just like her. And so I started with Wonder Woman and Poison Ivy, and I loved Poison Ivy for completely different reasons. She's a villainess, but she's actually trying to save the planet in her own way, which I love. And then also, we just kind of look similar.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started with those two. And then as time went on, I think my very first Comic Con, I was actually Harley Quinn, the Suicide Squad version, because
Mhm.
again, an absolutely amazing character. And I saw the trailer and I loved the costume they put her in. And
Yeah.
I was like, I can make that. And so I spent probably close to $400 or $500 making the exact replica. And then lo and behold, right before Halloween, I think it was the Spirit of Halloween, released one that was almost exactly like the one from the movie.
Awesome.
And I was like, for $100. And I was like, well, it's too late. I already made mine. It's fine.
Great. Yeah. So you could
So
you could
I
have
could have just waited,
right.
but I didn't.
But it's not the same. If you make it yourself, it's totally different, right? The feel is totally different.
Exactly. And it really is. And it's an accomplishment. Like my very
Yeah.
favorite cosplay I've made, I've actually got two, are my Poison Ivy and my Red Sonja. And both of them are very intricate. I spent probably hundreds of hours on them. The Red Sonja has 3,000 teeny tiny individual metal scales
Mm.
that I used pliers and little O-rings, jump rings, to make and weave them into the skirt, the top, the belt.
Wow.
And then I hand sewed the cape, hand dyed it. I just bought white linen and I was like, okay, here we go. We're going to dye it this way. And so that was probably one of my pride and joys. And then my Poison Ivy, I made a corset from scratch. I installed all the grommets, the boning, and everything. And then individually attached every single leaf in a certain pattern so it was symmetrical because I
Wow.
wanted it to be as close to the character as possible.
Yeah, that's so like such a detailed work, right? Like I follow a few people that are cosplayers, and it's like the sometimes they'll post how many hours it takes them to make a costume. And initially, like not knowing, I was always into Marvel, I was into comics, but it was probably about 5 years or 6 years ago that I started kind of going to Comic Con. So I didn't do that all my life, and initially I thought that they were just all bought, but then I realized, oh no, these people aren't buying these costumes, they're making them. And because some of them are posting how many hours it takes them to make one, and it's, I mean, a ridiculous amount of hours, like you said, like just hundreds of hours sometimes, on a costume. And it's like, that's unreal. That's such a like a wow moment when I see that, and it brings a totally different, you look at it totally differently once you know somebody's put in that much work into making that. So
Mhm.
what do you think as far as Comic Cons and everything? Are you planning, well, I don't even know if they're going to have one in San Diego this upcoming year. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard about San Diego.
Hmm.
I know that the local one in Dallas that I always go to is going to be
Hmm.
happening, and I'm actually a guest with one of my friends.
Oh,
We have a booth
awesome.
and everything, so
Great.
it'll be
So we'll
very
see,
fun.
we'll see a lot of Instagram pictures, I'm sure, about that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, you
that'd
will.
be
It'll be Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. It'll be
Yeah,
perfect.
that's awesome. So so she's going as one and you're going as the other. So which one
Mhm,
is it going to be? Are you going as Poison Ivy?
mhm. I'm Poison Ivy and she's Harley Quinn. If you saw on my Instagram, there's a picture. If you scroll down certain, it's further back.
Hmm.
There's a picture where there's a teeny tiny Harley Quinn, and she's all cuddled up, and like I'm hugging her, and I just look like an absolute giantess.
So, so
I,
so she doesn't lift. Is
oh
it
no,
safe
she
to say?
does.
Oh, she
She
does.
does.
Okay,
She's just really tiny.
I see.
So
Okay.
I just look really tall
Hmm.
and really big because I'm next to such an adorably tiny human. Um, she actually lifts. She can keep up pretty well.
Nice.
Um, to the gym with her once or twice a week, and so we have a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So let me ask you this: Are you looking to forward to any theatrical or shows that are coming up, like that you really can't wait?
There's a couple. So, do you mean like actual like stage performances or movies? Let me ask that
Um,
question real quick.
well, sorry about that. I meant like either like shows that they have on Disney or just movies. Like, but I didn't realize there's stage performances. Go ahead and talk about those if you know of any.
So, I'll start with the one I really want to go see. I've actually got three stage performances, musicals, because it just makes sense to me.
Uh huh.
Um, I have wanted to see Hamilton live since I first heard the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to see Wicked, and I've always wanted to see The Lion King. So all of those three are on my bucket list right now.
Got it.
Um, in terms of movies, I heard a rumor that Margot Robbie is trying to get a Poison Ivy in the next Suicide Squad movie.
Really
So
interesting.
oh yeah, I am really crossing my fingers for that one. Really would love to see that happen. Um, I'm also really looking forward to the next season of The Mandalorian because I love Star Wars. I love the entire universe. And of
Yes.
course, Grogu is the cutest thing on the face of the planet.
Yes, Grogu is funny. And it's funny because it's like once they said like the name, the Baby Yoda thing that people were calling him kind of went out the window. I don't hear it anymore now. And it's like it's always just Grogu now. So
Right.
that's so funny. Yeah, so Hamilton, like personally I'm not interested, but I heard it's an amazing show. Lion King, I did end up going seeing with my wife a few years ago at TPAC here, a local like a local, I don't know what you would call it, but just a setup in the area. And they it was incredible. Like Lion King was awesome as a play. Like I at first initially I was like, "Ah, I don't want to see a play. I'm not a play person, but Lion King was definitely awesome. Like definitely if you get a chance, you should definitely see it. As far as Star Trek, I thought it was interesting how they ended it because in my mind, I thought that we were going to go through like all the seasons with the same two characters, but the way they ended it with it kind of completing and Luke coming and taking Grogu, and then we see just the next step of the show is going to probably not involve those two characters. At least that's the way it seems to me. I don't know, do you remember the last episode, like how
I
yeah,
do.
so what did you think about that? Was that surprise you?
It did surprise me. And I was also like, okay, so how is Mando going to stay with him? Because Grogu definitely kind of sees him, I think, anyways, as like the father
Mhm.
figure. So I was really curious how they were going to make that work. And then I was like, well, honestly, he's probably just going to be a little heathen. And Luke is going to be like, get back here and discipline this thing for me.
Yeah. They could go that way. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm always interested. I mean, Disney is really Marvel, under the umbrella of Disney is really killing it. I mean, they've been killing it for like 10 long years, with with the movies and now bringing in the shows. I'm really interested, and my wife was very thought that it would be cool to see the show, the Loki show, the one that they have out. That seems really cool because he's kind of like in a time, like he's jumping through time. They got, he's a prisoner. They're using his skills. It seems like a good scenario for a lot of comedy and a lot of like just good episodes. You will see what they do with it.
Yeah, that one's on the list. It wasn't at the top of the list, but it's definitely on there. And don't judge me, but I have not seen the new Captain America. Um,
Oh, you're talking about the show?
yeah, I haven't seen it yet because I haven't taken the time to sit down and watch it yet.
Yeah, you should do it.
But
It's good. It's good. I mean, always interested to know what people think. I liked it. It but I if I had to pick like Mandalorian or that, I would definitely go with Mandalorian. I think Mandalorian is it really like set the bar high. So now it's like every show after that, I almost compare it to that. So it's
mhm.
so I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's not bad at all. It's really good. But it's just I'll be interested to know what you think of it. I don't want to spoil anything for you. So but yeah. So
I'll be sure to let you know when I watch it.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, anyway, Savannah, thank you for your time. I wish you all the best on your competitive career. Hopefully, we'll get that pro card very soon. And yeah, if there's anyone that wants to reach out to you, whether it's like for advice or like some nutritional help or anything else, what would be the best way to get in contact with you?
So usually the best way to get in contact with me is through Instagram. You can usually send me a message, and I try to check my request box pretty regularly. And if I see it's something like someone asking for advice or needing help, especially if it's like, hey, where can I find a good coach?
Right.
Um, I'm always happy to help point in directions. Nutritional help, I am not a coach, so I will always send them that way. Also, in the state of Texas, chiropractors are not licensed to give nutritional plans, so I don't do that. But if someone ever has questions like about chiropractic, I do have a chiropractic Instagram that's linked somewhere on my cosplay and bodybuilding one. Um, so I always say if you have chiropractic questions, weightlifting questions, I'm an animal lover, a cosplayer, so I'm always trying to keep an eye on it. My Facebook is also really good, the public page. I very rarely get on. I still have a personal page. Very rarely get on that. Very rarely get on my personal Instagram. I know people request it, and I'm just like, I don't post anything on there
Yeah.
anymore. There's really nothing there. But those are both great. I do have a Twitter I very rarely use. And then if it's for like business inquiries, I always tell people to reach out to the linked email in my Instagram profile, realqueenofthejungle@gmail.com. That one's usually more for like any modeling gigs or anything that people want to hire me for.
Got it. Perfect. Well, it sounds like we ended at a good time. Your birds are calling
Yeah.
your name, and so
Oh, yes, they are.
they they need you back. So again, thank you so much for your time, and you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for having me on the show, and you too.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.